Good day, everybody. I hope that you are well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 4 English lesson on adjectives that compare. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with your username as well as your password, and then we're going to select the subject of English language arts, grade 4. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of adjectives that compare. All right. So our chapter is adjectives that compare. Our subject is English language arts. Grade 4. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of adjectives that compare is to use adjectives that compare and to spell the adjectives that compare. All right. So when it comes to adjectives that compare, right? Then you can use some adjectives to compare people, you can compare places, and you can compare things, right? So you can basically use some adjectives to compare people, places, or things, right? That is what you can compare. So when it also comes to comparing adjectives, right? Then we have two types of adjectives that compare. We have comparative adjectives and we have superlative adjectives. All right, so comparative adjectives, right? It compares two people, places, or things. So we have comparative adjectives and they compare, right? Either two people, or they compare two places, or they compare two things, right? And that is comparative adjectives. It's like they are comparing that to people, places, or things, right? And when it comes to comparative adjectives, the comparative adjectives, right, they always end in er. So they end in er. And if you look at an example, right, the example says he is taller than his sister. So the word taller, and you see taller even ends with an er, right? So he is taller than his sister. So basically, we are comparing him to his sister. So we say he is taller than his sister. Or if we were to compare his sister to him, we would have said she is shorter than him, or his sister is shorter than him. And then we have a superlative adjective, right? And a superlative adjective, right? It compares more than two people, places, or things. So it's more than two people, places, or things that we are comparing. And when we use superlative adjectives, right, to compare, and then it means that our superlative adjective, it ends in est. So it ends in est, right? So a comparative adjective ends in er, whereas a superlative adjective ends in est. A comparative adjective, it compares two people, places, or things, whereas superlative adjective, it compares more than two people, places, or things. All right. And if we look at an example, right? An example of a superlative adjective. An example of a superlative adjective. He is the tallest. And there we have our word tallest. He is the tallest person in class, which means that we are not comparing him to basically more than two people, right? Or we're basically comparing him to a group, right? Or to the rest of the class. That is what we are doing. So that shows the superlative adjective. All right. So that is our comparative adjectives, right? We see that we can use some adjectives to compare people, places, or things. And we made mention of a comparative adjectives which compares to people, places, or things. And it ends in er. And then we have a superlative adjective, right? All right. If we now look at these examples on the right hand side. All right. And if we look at our, let's say, our activity or something, or the three questions over here. So we can now say that my dad takes the showers of anyone in my family. All right. So now we said my dad takes the showers of anyone in my family. Is it longest? Is it shortest? Is it quickest? All right. So we can either say my dad takes the longer showers, we can say the quicker showers, we can say the shorter showers, right? It really depends. Because the thing is, we don't, it's not like we have options in front of us, right? Common shoe size is much than her mom's. Common shoe size is it much bigger than or much smaller than her mom's? So common shoe size is much than her mom's. What word do you think you put in there? Common shoe size is much more than her mom's. Smaller, bigger. All right. So smaller it is. So we can then even say it is much more smaller or it's much more bigger. But in this case, we go with it's much more smaller than her mom's. All right. The top kitchen cupboard is than the bottom one. What word do you think we will add there? The top kitchen cupboard is than the bottom one. Nicer, bigger, cleaner. What word can we put there? The top kitchen cupboard is than the bottom one. We can even say that word. Yes, it is more fuller. It's more emptier. Yes, beautiful. Right? Remember, if they don't give us the options, then it means that we are basically putting our own options there. So we can say that the top kitchen cupboard is fuller than the bottom one. Or common shoe size is, we can even say, smaller than her mom's or bigger than her mom's, right? So once again, adjectives that compare, they compare people, places, or things. We have comparative adjectives which compare two people, two places, two things, right? And it ends in er, like taller and so on. And then we have superlative adjective, right? It compares more than two people, places, and things, and it ends in est. All right. So now we're going to a+students.ca, and then we're going to do our tutorial as well as our test. So now we're going to use adjectives to compare. We see that we can use some of the adjectives to compare people, places, or things, right? And it ends in er. But now a comparative adjective ends in er, and a superlative adjective ends in est. If we look at the first one says, complete the sentence with the correct form of the adjective. It says, Mom's turkey gravy is always a little bit than Dad's. What word can we put there? The turkey gravy, more liquidy. Do we say it's thicker, it's thinner? What will we put there? All right, so the option they don't give us, but we can then say maybe it is much more thicker, right? So the gravy is much more thicker. Let's just go with that answer that they've given us, right? Then it says, the copper crayon is the one left in the box. If we compare one thing to a whole box, to a whole class, then it means that it now turns into a superlative adjective. So in this case, it says the copper crayon in is the one left in the box, which means that we are not comparing that one copper crayon to the whole box. Yes, we can even say shortest. Or we can say, remember when we are only comparing one person, right? Or two people, then we can still add er. We can say shortest, fullest, biggest, smallest, and so on. But as soon as we say superlative, all right. Let us go to our test. Okay, here it says complete the sentence with the correct form of adjective. When Devon was in hospital, Nurse Alvarado was a lot, do we say a lot kinder or a lot kindest than Dr. Kerr? So we need to say what type of person Nurse Alvarado was, a lot than or compared to Dr. Care. So we can say yes, option one, that she was more kinder, right? So kinder. She was more kind. She was being kind, but she was even more kinder, and that is why we added er to her listen. All right, so we can say that Devon was in hospital and Nurse Alvarado was a lot kinder than Dr. Care. So well done. Kinder is correct. All right, so we say that the animal shelter has we can then say a greater need for dog beds than for cat beds. So greater, right? And greater is correct. The king easily won the battle because his sword was, do we say longer than his enemy or longest than his enemy? So we need to choose. All right, so we're going to say the knight easily won the battle because his sword was, do we say, longest than his enemy or longer than his enemy? No problem. As long as you're here, we are doing adjectives that compare. All right, then if we compare, right, the king's sword to his enemies, and then we can say the king won easily because his sword was longer than his enemies. So option two is correct. Well done. Kaya sells the, do we say freshest carrots or fresher carrots in the whole city of Lakeside? So we can say Kaya sells the, do we say Kaya sells the freshest carrots in the whole city of Lakeside or the fresher carrots? Freshest or fresher? All right. We can then say Kaya sells the freshest carrots in the whole city of Lakeside. So well done. Okay, the top kitchen cupboard is then the bottom one. So the top kitchen cupboard is, do we say it is fuller than the bottom one? The top cupboard. So we can say it is fuller than the bottom one. And then also we can say, is the lamp in the living room? Do we say brighter or brightest than the lamp in my bedroom? So we need to say if the lamp is brighter than the one in the bedroom. All right, yes, so we can say brighter. Because remember, we say ER because we are comparing, let's say, ourselves to a few people, right? All right. We need to complete the sentence with the correct form of the adjective. Our dog Bailey had the, do we say had the smoother or the smoothest fur of all of the dogs in the dog shadows? So our dog Bailey had the fur of all the dogs in the dog show. All right, so we can say our dog Bailey had the smoothest fur of them all in the dog show. All right, yes. Option two is correct. Well done. Now we're going to the next one that says spell adjectives that compare. We're going to spell the adjectives that compare now. So you can use adjectives to compare people, places, and things, right? that we use to compare. When we have a comparative adjectives, we compare two people, places, or things, and they end in er. And then we have superlative adjectives, right, which compare more than two people, places, or things, and they end in est. All right. So we see that you can use adjectives to compare people, places, things. We have a superlative adjective and a comparative adjective. Comparative adjectives compare to people or places or things. All right. So we can then say that if we compare, we basically compare to more than one person, two. All right. So remember, we see that when we have a comparative adjective, then we're comparing to people, places, or things, and the superlative adjective, it compares to more than two people, places, or things. All right, so this is how we complete a sentence by writing either the comparative or superlative adjective. For example, my old pencil is. We need to write this the shorter version of short. All right. So the first one is my old pencil is, I guess that is short. So which means that we say shorter than my new one. So my old pencil is shorter than my new one. And that is a comparative adjective, right? It's a comparative adjective. All right. Let's do quickly. We're finishing our test before the lesson comes to an end. Almost. We are almost going to end. We're going to complete the sentence with the correct comparative or superlative adjective. The shopping mall is the full. Do we say is the full? I had ever seen it right before the holidays or fullest. Is it full or fullest? Option one or option two? All right, so we will say that the shopping mall was the fullest I'd ever seen it right before the holidays. Tucker knows do I say quick or quicker way to the bus station than I do? So Tucker knows do we say quick or quicker way to the bus station than I do? So now we can say he took the quicker way to the bus station than I do. All right, well done. The dog we found at the shelter is it young or younger than our other dog? Is it young or younger than the other dog? All right, so we can then say that it is younger than the other dog, which is Rico. And now we're going to do the last one. Ellie has the bright pea blue eyes of all the girls in class. So we can say Ellie has the bright pea blue eyes of the girls in the class. Do we say in the family, do we say bright or do we say the brightest? Because now she's being compared to everybody, all the girls in the family. All right, so we will say she's got the brightest, which means that we are comparing her to the whole family or all of the girls in the family. All right, so that is the end of our lesson on adjectives that compare. We said we used adjectives to compare and spelled adjectives, right? And with adjectives that compare, we have our comparative adjective as well as our superlative adjectives, right? Comparative adjectives compare to people, places, or things, whereas a superlative adjective compare more than two people, places, or things. All right. So that is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade fours. Have a good weekend further. Goodbye.